Hey developers, today we're going to create our own domain name service on Web3. So this is going to have a Solidity contract. We're going to learn how we can connect it with Vue.js. We're going to look at Alchemy and also Metamask. So if you're looking to get into Web3 and you want to learn how to do everything, especially with Vue, this is the right tutorial for you. And I want to say real quick, I actually have a Discord channel that will help you along. It's a brand new channel. I'm looking for mods. I'm looking for people interested. I'll put a link in the description. Go ahead and join. So if you are working through this tutorial, join the Discord. Let me know how it's going. And yeah, talk to me about it. Let's take a quick tour of the app that we're going to create today. Okay, so here is the website we're creating using Vue.js in the background. You can see here it's Eric's name services. Basically, it's a way to talk to the blockchain. And by the way, I'm going to shout out BuildSpace for giving me the inspiration for this. Include a link in the description. So if I want to create a domain, I'm going to create a domain called rrr.programwithyt. And what's your web power? Your power Web3 tech. And what I'm going to hit mint here, it's going to bring up Metamask. It's going to ask me if I'm okay with the fees for it. I'm on the test network right now. Confirm. You can see in the console that it's talking to the wallet and I'm paying gas. Cool. So the transaction went through and now it's asking to record this, basically this Web3 tech as well onto the transaction, onto the contract. So I'm going to confirm this as well. All right. So it went ahead and confirmed the transaction. You can see here in my console log, there's a record set. If I click here, it opens up Polygon scan, and this will just take a moment. This will show the record being created. Cool, so here is the record, and what's nice, this is actually on OpenSeas as well. So if we look at OpenSeas, put in our record, our contract, I already have it up here. And if we refresh the page here, you can see there's 5 items. That one just got created. So it's this one right here. You don't see the picture right away, but it usually takes a little bit to pop up. But if we look at this contract right here, and we bring it into our testnet NFT viewer, and I increment it to 4, I fetch it. You can see RRR program with Eric. So it has been created. If you guys want to know more, make sure you stay all the way to the end. But let's jump into the code. Let's go ahead and start with the setup. So for this app, we're going to create it using Hardhat. We're going to use Vue.js. So Hardhat is a tool that'll make it easier for us to deploy our contract onto the Polygon network. And we're going to use Vue for our front end. So let's start with just creating some directories here. So we're going to create a directory for our cool domains. Then inside this directory, I'm going to change directories to it. I'm going to run this npm init-y, and this is just going to make an empty package.json that we'll be using. Now in this tutorial we'll be using npm, but if you want to use yarn or pnpm, it's basically the same thing. So I'm going to npm install -d hardhat, and so this is going to be the tool that we're going to use to create our contracts. We can deploy our contracts locally into our local blockchain, or we can deploy them onto a different network. For the sake of this tutorial, we'll be using the Polygon test network, which we'll talk about here in a second. Great. So if we cat our package.json, you can see now we have this dev dependency for Hardhat. So I'm going to copy and paste this from the other screen. This is a few other dependencies we need. We have this Hardhat waffle. We have Chais for some testing. Ethers is what we're going to be using as our library to talk to the Polygon network, to our blockchain. So that's everything that we need there. We're also going to need one more. We're going to install this Open Zeppelin. So I'm going to copy and paste it. And this is a set of contracts that we can use in our Solidity contract to use. So essentially, it's like a library that we're going to be using for our contracts. Now that we have all this installed, we can run a couple of commands here. First, we don't have too much here, but we can do npm hardhat compile. And this is going to ask us some questions of creating a new Hardhat project. So I'm just going to create a basic sample project in this folder, and I'm just going to use the defaults for everything. So if I do that, now I have this new contracts folder and a new test folder. And I can just even right now just see what happens. I'm going to run npx hardhat test, And this will go ahead and just run whatever's the default scaffolding that it created. It has this greeter contract in there, and you can see it's running. So great. So we've set this up. We do want to use Vue. So we're going to do Vue. Well, we'll do npm init Vue at latest. And this will install a Vue.js project. So we're going to call it Web3 domains YT. We're not going to add TypeScript support or anything like that. We just want a basic app. We're just going to hit enter all the way through. And just to make sure we have this all set up, I'm going to run npm install real quickly. Now we can do the way we have this set up. It's if we want to use Ether, we probably should install it. So I'm going to run that real quickly. npm I ethers. So this is going to be the library we use to talk to our blockchain and do our contract stuff for Web3. Awesome. So now we have all this installed. So let's go on to the next step. Okay, we've just began to set up our Hardhat and start jumping into our contracts. But before we can do that, let's make sure that we have a few other things to get going. First, we want to use Metamask. It's a absolutely 100% free extension for Chrome that allows you to keep your crypto wallet safe and have money in it or fake money or whatever we want. So go ahead and download that and install it, and then you can use you can open it up and you can see here I have 0 Matic, and I'll explain for a second how you can do this. Usually you have, if you click at the top, you have a few networks listed. If you don't have this Polygon Mumbai installed, I'll show you how to add that in here. But we're going to be using this network. And the way we're going to access that network is we're using this tool called Alchemy, which makes Web3 development made easy. Essentially, it's like a set of tools to talk to blockchain tech, and it's 100% free. They actually just had a funding round at a $10.2 billion valuation. So this company is growing really quickly. So go ahead and create a free account with them. After you log in, you'll see this dashboard view here. And I've already created a few front-end apps, but I created one on the Polygon Mumbai network. To do that, just click Create App, and it's going to ask you a few pieces of information, your name, description, and where it says chain, you can choose Polygon. And then where it says network, choose Polygon Mumbai. And the reason we're choosing the Mumbai network is this is a test network. So we don't want to actually deal with the real network right now because we don't want to waste a bunch of money. So we can use this test network as we are creating our Web3 contracts, test them out, and then when we feel comfortable, we can actually deploy it on the real Polygon mainnet. And one reason I chose Polygon instead of Ethereum, the Ethereum network. So basically Polygon is like a L2 chain, side chain of Ethereum, is because Polygon is gaining a lot of momentum lately and it has very low fees. So the main Ethereum network, if you do decide to actually deploy a contract on there, it costs a bit of money, what they call gas fees to actually deploy on that network, while Polygon is very, very cheap at this point. So that's why I'm doing it. After you click this create app and you create that app, you'll see it listed here under your team's apps. And you can just click this view key button. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to expose these keys to everybody. But they'll have a URL and a key, an API key. Go ahead and just save those and you'll be using them later in this tutorial. And then finally, after you add this in here, if you click on this on the new app you created, there's this button called Add to Wallet. If you click Add to Wallet here, it'll go ahead and add it into your MetaMask. So that way, when you're in the app, you should have this new MetaMask Polygon Mumbai Alchemy network. If you don't, leave a comment below if you have any issues with that, but it should add it into your MetaMask. Now, when you first start it, you'll notice you have 0 Matic, and there is no money in it. So we need to actually add money so we can be able to create this contract, because everything you do on the blockchain requires some sort of payment. And in this case, this would be Matic is what we're calling it. In Ethereum, we call it ETH. So this Matic now is 0. So to get more Matic, there is a free Polygon faucet for the test networks. And the way you want to work this is, I'll put a link in the description below. Basically, it's at faucet.polygon.technology. But if we open up MetaMask again, I can just click here. I copy this to clipboard. This is my test account address. I just make sure I have Mumbai on this tab here. I'll control paste it. So here it is. And if you can see here, it's just a really long hash string. It starts with 64. I'll click submit, and this will actually send over, and I'll confirm it. And it says it takes about 1 to 2 minutes. And what this will do is it'll send it a half a Matic, which I would recommend doing this twice, so that way you can get a full Matic. And it just takes a minute or two. So if you see 0 here, don't worry. Just give it a minute, and it should send it to it. And if you can, they don't let you send more than like one every minute. So you're just gonna have to kind of wait a minute and then try to send it again. So I would try to send 2 of them, so you at least have 1 full Matic for our tests, and it'll give you a little bit of extra money to do things while we test things out. So let's take a look again. Since I've been talking, still not there, but I'm sure it will be there in a second. Let's add one more dependency. I'm gonna do npm i-tacd, and we're gonna do .env. So now that we've set up the Alchemy and we set up MetaMask, there's a couple things we need from those, and we want to save them inside our app, but we also don't want to accidentally deploy them to like GitHub or anywhere else where people can see them, because that way, if they did see them, they can steal our account information and steal our money out of our wallet. So I'm going to add that in. I'm going to create a new file called .env, and in this file, I'm going to add in a URL and a key. So the URL that I want you guys to add in is, if you go back to our Alchemy, and if you were on that dashboard before, there's these view keys. If you click the view key on the Polygon Mumbai network that you just created, you want to go ahead and grab the URL, not the API key, the URL out of there, and then go ahead and just copy and paste it into this file. And then we need to grab a key too. Now this key we need is actually the key inside your MetaMask wallet. So if you're in your MetaMask wallet right now, and you have you probably have 1 Matic. I haven't sent my other Matic in yet. What you want to do is click this button here, there's three circles, and then you can click account details. And what it's going to do from here is there's this button that says export private key. I'm not going to do it here on the camera, but if you click this export private key, it's going to ask you for your password, and then it's going to give you a key. You'll need that key to add into this .env file. So go ahead, I'll go ahead and do that off camera, but go ahead and add that key in here. And what this is basically doing is it allows us to use our wallet that we set up through MetaMask to be able to do transactions on the Polygon chain. One other thing, a real quick tip, if you already have a MetaMask wallet and you actually have money in it, it's a really good idea to go ahead and click this button here and just go ahead and add another wallet. Add another account. You can create as many accounts as you want, and they're 100% free. Each one will have its own unique private key, and you definitely want to do that. You don't want to do this on your main blockchain wallet that you actually have like real currency in. If you happen to have maybe bought some on Coinbase or crypto.com and then you moved it over to your wallet, just because as you're doing these tests and things, you don't want to accidentally give away your private key or anything like that. So always create a brand new account before you start doing any of these things like that. So go ahead and grab those 2 keys, one from here, the URL from this Web3 test or whatever you created in the Polygon Mumbai network, and the key that we grabbed from MetaMask. Put them both in this file and save it. Make sure it's a .env file. It's going to be the root of your app. And now we want to go into the Hardhat config. So this file right here, just don't worry about the ESLint error. This file right here is where we're going to put in our configuration options. I'm going to copy and paste this from my other screen here. from my other screen here. I'll paste. And what I'm doing here is I'm using that require.env that I already installed earlier. If you remember, I installed that on the screen here. And then we're also going to basically tell it that if we want to connect to the Mumbai network. And this process.env is actually going to grab it out of that .env file. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. And now we need to do a couple more things, but let's take a look at the contract we're going to use today. So I'm going to delete this greeter.sol so we don't need it anymore. And by the way, if you're using VS Code, it might tell you that the marketplace extensions that can help with .sol files. Let's take a look here. If you click search here, there's the Solidity one right here. Go ahead and just click install, and it should install it. I always try to make sure that I have the right extensions installed in VS Code whenever I'm using special Solidity or something else like that. And that'll make it really nice to be able to work with these files. So this just take a moment. And now I am going to go into this contracts folder. It doesn't have anything else in it. So I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it libraries. And then I'm going to, in this contracts folder, I'm going to create a new file called domains.sol. And this is going to be the Solidity file, essentially our contract that's going to be talking to the blockchain. Before we get too far, I want to add in a couple of new files in here. These are going to be some utility classes that are going to help us work with our domains, our domain file. So I'm going to create a new file that I call base64 and one called string utils.sol. Let's start with base64.sol. I'm going to copy and paste this. This is essentially like an open source utility library that you can find online on a few different GitHub repos. So I'm not going to go over this. Like I said, this is freely available. It's MIT licensed. It gives you this base64. It turns values into base64 representation. So you could take like a digital file and it turns it in, or take this text and turn it into a base64 representation. And the reason we're going to need this is we're going to be doing some manipulation of an SVG, and we need it into a certain format so we can save it on the chain. And for the string utils, this is another one. It's an open source utility library that is available for anyone out there to use. And I'm just copy and paste it from a different repository. It's basically, it returns the length of a given string. That's all it does. And it does some calculations on here. So now let's look at the domains, this contract that we're going to create. And I'm going to also copy and paste this from another screen, but I'm going to talk a little about what it does and what you should expect from it. So I'm going to insert it in here, and we'll take a look at it. So let's see here. First, at the beginning, we did this Open Zeppelin import, and this format of Solidity files should be somewhat familiar to you if you've used JavaScript, but even more so if you've used Java or any object-oriented programming languages out there. So maybe if you're using classes in JavaScript, this would feel at home as well. It has that similar format. It also has this ES6 type of import, a way of importing files in. So we installed through our node modules and as a dependency this Open Zeppelin. So this is basically giving us the option of using our ERC 721, which is a type of way to store files. We also have this counter, so we can kind of increment a counter, the string utils and base64 files that we just created, and then Hardhat. So this is saying this is inheriting the ERC 721 URI storage contract, and we're creating some counters. And basically the whole point of this is we are going to be able to use this as like sort of kind of like a domain. Like we're creating a fake domain on the blockchain that's going to be represented by a file, like an NFT. So this SVG right here is a file. This is essentially a picture. And then we are creating this name service that's going to allow us to register this on the blockchain. And this is a function. This is a string. It's payable, meaning that you can pay tokens or pay some of our costs inside of this to be able to register a file. So think of this as like registering a domain. And then we do some checks to see if they put enough money in. We check some memory, and then we also encode it using some of the functions that we've created. And then we basically essentially register it on the blockchain. And we use this memory. We have to use that base64 file that we just created to encode it. And then we have this ABI, which is our contract, which is going to be compiled together. And we're going to have this basically URI, which is the location of where it's at. And we're going to console log that out. And then we're using this safe mint option to mint it on, basically think of minting as a way of adding it to the blockchain. And then we also have this price function that helps us figure out how much pricing of the domain based on the length of it, because if it's a really long domain, it'll cost more. And then we have some other functions to get the address, set record, get record, owner, and withdraw. We're not going to look at these, but in the future, in a follow-up video, we could take a look at how we can get money out of this contract. So people will be able to use this contract to register kind of this fake domain and create this domain and then register it, and then the money will be inside this contract, and it'll only be able to be withdrawn from the owner of the contract itself. So it's pretty neat. I would go through this line by line and write it, but I think we're going to focus this video on the next part, which is how we're going to talk to Vue and how we're going to use Vue to actually talk to this contract. Since we have this contract in place now let's make sure it's saved. There's a couple more things we want to do. And we want to actually see if we can send this to our to the Polygon Mumbai test network. So we'll do that next. Let's see if we can go ahead and deploy this and see what it does. So I'm going to create a new file in our scripts folder called run.js. And I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this from another screen, and I'll go and talk about it. So this is a script that will deploy our contract onto the Polygon chain. We'll tell Hardhat to do that. So what we're doing is this HRE is built in to Hardhat, so no need to import this in. But essentially, it gets the contract factory that we created called domains, and we're going to pass that to, and we said not Ninja, but to this program with YT. And we're essentially creating a new program with YT. So this talk is talking directly to our contract that we created, and then we're going to deploy it, and we're going to get an address to where it's deployed, the contract's deployed, because that's the first thing we need to do is deploy the contract. And this is essentially the constructor. We're passing in this program with YT. So if we look back at this domains.sol, we have right here this constructor right here. We have Eric's name service. We have the TLD that we're passing in, which is being passed into the constructor. And then in this case, you see here, we're passing in programs with YT, and that's the top level domain. That's like the .com, .info, .org, things like that. Then what we're doing is the contract's deployed, and we're going to use this register function from it. And we're going to register a new Eric YT. So basically a second variable in here, which is the name. And then we're going to calculate the MATIC that we need to pay, and then we're going to register it using the contract that we just deployed. And we're going to pay 0.1 ETH to do that. And then if everything works okay, we're going to use the get address, which once again, if you look here in our contract, we have a function called get address, which will return the address. And then we'll go and print that out. And then we're going to do the get balance, which will print out the balance of the contract. So if this all works okay, it should do all that. So let's give it a shot. To run this, we need to run npx hardhat. I'll type it out here. npx hardhat run scripts.run.js. Now, if we hit enter here, what it's going to do is it's going to run locally. It's basically a fake blockchain that it creates. And you can use this as a way to test the contract that you just created to make sure it works. And you can see right here that it went ahead and worked. It's the service deployed. We have this address here. Don't worry about this. This is a fake address. But it says eric.yt program with YT on the contract token ID 0. This is the picture that was created, and it's base 64 encoded. And here's the domain, like our fake transaction domain. But we actually want to try to test this on the Mumbai test network. So instead of running this hardhat run scripts run.js, I'm going to run --network Mumbai. And the way I got that from is, if we remember, if we go back to hardhat config, we created this Mumbai network. So that's what we're going to deploy it at. So this will just take a moment to deploy. And if we get an error here, so you can see here, insufficient funds for gas price plus value. This actually sometimes happens when I was testing. And what I did to fix that is I went back into my test network and went into my Polygon faucet. And I just went ahead and sent some more in there to fix it. So let me do that real quickly off camera, and then we'll try it again. Okay, let's go ahead and try again. This time we have more money in our wallet. And this will just take a second. Cool, so it went ahead and deployed. And you'll get two things here. You get the owner of the domain, which is, this is the address of my test wallet. But this is where the contract's been deployed to. So if I can see if it worked and it was able to do what I expected. So first, I'm going to just look on the test network. If you go to mumbai.polygonscan.com, I can just look here. And sometimes it takes a moment for it to just show up. So we just have to kind of wait a second. Great, so you can see here, now it showed up about 47 seconds ago. You can see the transaction from my address, and it created the contract that we created. And now we should be able to see an OpenSea, and sometimes this takes a few minutes too. So if you go to testnets.opensea.io, this looks at some of those test networks, like the Mumbai one that we were on, and we can maybe see our contract in here. Cool. So here's Eric's name service v2. And here is that NFT we created. Now, you're not seeing it here because OpenSea is super slow. So it might take 5 minutes. Sometimes it takes an hour before it shows here. But there's this service called Testnet NFT Viewer. It's made by the fun people at BuildSpace, which have helped with this contract. I can copy, what I can do is I can change this to Matic Mumbai at the top. I'll paste the contract address. And we saw that it should be the first one. So you can look at here, this is number 0. So we'll make sure this is 0. And we'll click fetch here. And cool, so you can see here, it automatically pulled it in a little bit quicker. We could see here is our Eric's name service. Here is the picture that we created, Eric YT at Program with Eric. So we have created this NFT, sort of a name service. I mean, not technically, but you kind of get the point, where we've created this NFT. It's on this test network. So let's see, the next thing we need to do is let's take a look at our Vue app and see if we can automate this run script that we just created, where we ask for the name and the domain name and the TLD, and we can do it all on a web page and connect that to our MetaMask wallet, which would be really cool. So let's take a look at that next. Okay, we are jumping into the Vue code. So before this video started, I went ahead and did a little bit of prep work, so you don't have to see me type all this, but I'll explain the concepts and we'll go into the function calls to call our contract. We'll write those, so that way we'll just speed up this process. And of course, you can always look at the full code for this in the description below if you want to follow along. So what I did is, off camera, I created 3 different components. One called layout, one called not connected form, and one called input form. So let's take a look at the layout first. So the layout here is pretty simple. All it has at the top is our Twitter handle, which is EricCH. By the way, if you're not following me, please do so at twitter.com/ERIKCH. And then I just have some class names, a container that says Eric's name service. And then I put a slot in here, and this is going to be displayed any anything between the opening and closing brackets of our components will be displayed here. And then I just have this footer that just has some Twitter text in it. And by the way, I did go in and delete all the old components in here and just cleaned it up. Once you create a new app using that npm init view at latest, there's a lot of crud in there, and I deleted all that stuff out. I also deleted, I added in a new base CSS, and I just added in a bunch of CSS. I'm not going to go through this, but it's just a way to make it look a little bit nicer. And in the app view, I deleted all the CSS at the bottom, and I'm just importing in that base CSS. So the layout is just to make the background look black and just have a header and footer at the top. Now this not connected form is the next component I created. And what I did on here is, you can see, by the way, I have this current account here. I have this not connected form, which I'm using this V model, and this is how we're going to pass the current account from this account, which we're going to do in the app.js, and pass it into the not connected form. And then if you are connected to an account, then you're going to see the input form. So that's the way I did that here. And so you see there's a v if there's nothing in the current account form, you're going to see the not connected form. Otherwise, you see the input form. I could have done it else, but I just did current account and not current account. So the not connected form here, this is all I did here is I had to define this props and emit because I'm using that V model. If you haven't watched, I actually did a video on how to use V models with Vue 3. And that's where this model value comes from, because I'm passing it in like this. If I passed it in with a name, then I wouldn't have to put that model value. But since I passed in without a name, I have to pass in this model value here. And then I have this emit that just basically puts it to some blah, so just some basic random thing. We'll write out this component, this function that actually grabs the account information and sets it correctly. We'll do that in a little bit. And then if they are connected, then they get this screen, which we'll go into a little bit more, and it allows you to put in your domain name and the record, which we haven't messed around with the record, but if you remember from the contract that we created earlier, that domain sol, there is a part where you can register the domain, and then there's also a part where you can set the record, which I'm going to search for it, set record, which checks the owner of the transaction center, and it basically sets the name, this value passed into it, the record, into that name. It's just like some extra information you can set into it. So I'll show you how that works. So that's it. So if we save it, this is kind of what we look at right here. It's Eric's name service, your modal API for the blockchain. There's like a ninja in the background. And right now, this sets it to blah. So then this v-if triggers, and then you get this domain, which we have program with YT, and what's your power. So we'll go back to that. So I'll refresh it, and we're back to the screen. So what we really want to do is we want to talk to our MetaMask. We want to talk to MetaMask, this right here, and be able to do something in this MetaMask here and connect to it and set records and things like that. So the first thing we should probably do is get this check if wallet is connected. And if it's not connected, then they should be able to connect it. So by the way, this onMounted just runs as soon as the component starts. So I'm going to do first thing, I'm going to grab this Ethereum out of the window. It's not Ethers, it's Ether, I always spell it wrong, EUM from window. And I'll say if there is no Ethereum, then in that case, we're going to console log error. We're going to console log error. And then we're going to return. And then else, we're going to console log, we have an Ethereum object, and we'll pass Ethereum to it. So if we just start with that, refresh this, and do the inspect on it, and look at the console, you can see right here, we have an Ethereum object. And you're probably wondering, where is this Ethereum object coming from? And the reason we have it is because we have MetaMask installed. If you don't have MetaMask installed, then you're going to get a pop. Then basically there's going to be an error. It's not going to work because we need MetaMask installed. So let's assume that you do have MetaMask installed. Then in that case, we can check to see. We can basically get the Ethereum request to get the account that's already set up. So we're going to go accounts, and we'll do if accounts.length does not equal 0, then we're going to grab the first one in the account list, and then we're going to set it. We already created a variable here, current account, so we're going to do current account dot value, and that's going to equal this account right here. Else, then we don't have an authorized account yet. We can put no authorized accounts. So once again, if we do this, you see there's no authorized account, so nothing's changed. If I go back to the inspect and we look at the console, no authorized accounts. So we haven't authorized MetaMask with our account yet. So in that instance, then we need to basically connect it to a wallet. So this is the not connected form. And what we need to do here is, once again, we're going to grab this Ethereum from the window, destructure it, and we'll do if not Ethereum again. Then we'll do an alert like get MetaMask, and then return. Otherwise, we should be able to now get an actual account. So we're going to do await Ethereum.request, but this time we're going to do this method called ETH request accounts. And then we're inside here, by the way, we probably should put this in a big try catch block. Let's do this real quickly. Error. And we'll do console log error. And then I'm going to move this all up out of here into this try block. And then if we get the accounts, this will basically, if you do this method right here, it'll open up MetaMask and ask you which account to connect to. So then if we get the accounts, then we can take this current account, which we, this is a prop. Basically, it's being passed in through the V model. And we can, well, essentially we have to do it like this. We're going to update this model, and then this is going to be the accounts. And we just want the first one. And we're going to do it like this. So if we did this correct, this should set the account to the counts that we set. And we can do also a console log of accounts, and we can see which one we selected. So let's see if this works. Come back over here. I'm going to open the input and go to the console again. We have no accounts. Click connect wallet. You can see MetaMask is opening on the right hand side saying, hey, do you want to connect to this one? Sure, that's my test account. Click next. Connect. Cool. Now you can see the account number connected to, and now we're on the next page. So now we should be able to do the next part, which is set up this page so you can actually set the domain name. It's going to connect. It's going to do everything we want. So let's go back to our app view, and I just wanted to put this current account here just to see that it worked. I'm going to delete it. See, we're still on this page because now it's connected. If I refresh the page, it's still connected to our MetaMask. If we like close out MetaMask or change accounts, then we'd have to reconnect again. But let's see if we can get this page working to actually set the domain. So if we go back into our Explorer, now we're into the input form. And so this is where we can directly talk to the contract. And we have this mint button. And all this mint button does, you can see here, it calls a click handler to mint domain. And that mint domain is right here. But we also have a few other things. We have set record, set domain. We're not going to worry about that for a second. But for mint domain, we want to mint and connect to our contract. Now, first thing we do, we need to grab this contract address. Now, if you remember from previously in the video, I went to this OpenSea and I created this contract. If I refresh this contract in OpenSea, it actually now shows the picture that it didn't do before. But we also can grab the address of this contract. And we also have this test NFT viewer that we use. So I'm going to copy this contract address out. I'm going to just paste it here. If you forgot the contract address and you're following along this tutorial, just go ahead and run the Hardhat compile and run again, and that'll run it and send it to and create the contract again. And then there's another thing we need to do. We need to create this contract ABI. And this contract ABI is where the contract's located at. And so if you look at our Explorer here, real quick, and we go to back to our artifacts, and then contracts, domain soul, we have this JSON file. This is like the compiled version of the contract, and we need this. Ethers, the library, needs this to be able to do stuff to talk to the contract. So we can simply go and, okay, there we go. We got the contract ABI. Okay, let's keep going here. So I need to check a few things. So this domain, I'm going to change the name of this. I'm going to call this just record, and this just domain. Should be a little easier. Call this domain record. Okay, so for my mint domain, I want to try to take the information from these two inputs. You can see right here, and contact the contract to actually mint this information. So let's begin with the code. So first, I'm going to say if there's no domain at all, domain.value, then I just want to go ahead and return. And if the domain.value.length is less than 3, so this is a few check to make sure they didn't put some bogus information here. I'm going to put alert, domain must be longer than 3, return. And then just a few other things. We want to create a price. So if the domain length equals 3, then it's going to be 0.5. Otherwise, the domain length equals 4. We're going to do 0.3. Otherwise, it's going to be 0.1. By the way, having nested ternary right here isn't great. I don't always recommend this, but for this quick demo, we'll go with it here. And we'll do console log minting domain. And we'll put in the domain with price. And we'll put in the price that was just calculated there. And now we need a big old try catch block. And we'll console log error, if I can type right. Okay, and then this try, we're going to, once again, we're going to grab that Ethereum from window. And if the Ethereum is in there, we always want to check to see if it's still there. We're going to use that ethers, new ethers.providers and .web3 provider, grab the Ethereum. And this is all from this ethers library that we created. You can find the official documentation to figure out what this is. This is essentially grabbing the provider from Metamask that we have. And we're going to basically get a signer, and this is going to allow us to talk to our contract. And then we're going to create a contract. So we're going to create a contract, new ethers.contract. And this is where we're going to have that contract address. Now we need to pass in the contract ABI dot, it's going to be the ABI, and then the signer. And so this comes from right here, this contract ABI. And we have to just grab the ABI out of it. And this allows us to kind of talk to the contract. And I'm going to put a console log here that says that we are essentially talking to, we're going to talk to the wallet and pay gas. So So now we can create a transaction. We're going to await the contract.register domain. We're going to put a value in there, ethers.utils.parse ether. We're going to pass in that price we calculated earlier. Once again, if you're using this and you get errors, we'll have to make sure we put more money on our MetaMask wallet. And we'll ask for a receipt here that we'll wait tx.wait to make sure that it finishes. And then we can check the status of it. If receipt.status equals 1, then we can say console log domain minted, and this is going to be https mumbai.polygonscan.com transaction, and then we'll add in the TX hash from that, and then we'll have to await the contract.set record. This is set the record for the domain. So yeah, we'll do contract.set record. And then we'll pass in the domain and record. And then we'll have to, once again, wait for it. tx.await, tx.wait. And then if that passes, that sets, basically this runs the set record command on that contract. And we can just do record set HP this, and the address would be mumbai.polygonscan.com/transaction. Cool. And then if all else fails, we can find out what went wrong. We'll do alert transaction failed. Please try again. Try again. Cool. So that should do it all. And then we can, at the end of this, we can also set the record dot value to nothing, and then the domain dot value to nothing if we want. Okay. Oops, I made a mistake here. Since I'm using this ref here, I have to put dot value at the end of all of them. So you can see here, domain dot value, domain dot value, domain dot value, value, and register. Got to make sure I put domain dot value here. And there is one more at the bottom. And same thing with record. So I have to make sure that I set all these values to dot value. So let's see here, record dot value, right here. And the V model is okay in there. So let's try it again. I saved it. Refresh the page. We're gonna put in YT123, and we'll do it Web3 123. Click mint. Talking to the wallet. Cool. So now you see here MetaMask opened up. Says it wants to take out 0.1. I'm going to confirm it. And now right here you would probably have a loading spinner, but for the sake of this demo, I'm just going to give it a second and it'll go ahead and it's contacting the blockchain. And cool. So confirm the transaction. So now the next thing is it's doing that set record, and this costs also some gas. So I'm going to confirm this one. So that adds the message to it. And now this is going to take a few seconds. Once again, I would probably have a loading spinner up here if I wanted to, and maybe my next video I'll do that. Cool. So now it says transaction 7 confirmed. And so both of them are now confirmed, and I have links here to where they are. And they should be on our Polygon test network. And if we do, we already have, if you remember, we already have this Eric's name service. So now we have 2 of them now. So look, the other one already shows up, but this one showed up quicker. So this is the one we just created, YT123 program with Eric for my domain name service. It was created from that contract. Cool. So now I have created a way of talking directly to my crypto wallet through a web page. So there's a lot of other cool things we can do here, but this video is getting pretty long. We could list out all the records. We can have like a special domain way of transferring information out from the domain owner, or basically from the owner of the contract. So now this contract has some money in it. So if we wanted to, we can have that money go back to the contract owner. So this is kind of a neat thing. You can see here, we've been able to talk to the blockchain, add stuff to it, add multiple records. It's really neat. So let me know if you guys have any questions below. And thanks. Take care. And if you got lost through any of this, make sure you just look at the code in the description. Thanks.